So recently, I had a few people visiting on 2 separate occasions, and each time we seemed to end up playing Mario Kart 8 to be specific, and as you can guess, I've been playing it quite a lot. This has caused me to reminisce a bit about Mario Kart and made me wonder what changes have happened over the years, so I thought it would make for some fun to look back at the older Mario Kart games and just see exactly how different each one is. Now obviously, the most recent one to come out is Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U. The distinct difference this game has over the older installments is the anti-gravity sections. When I first saw this, it was immediately enticing. Having the ability to drive up certain walls meant that the levels could be more vertical. A level like Shy Guy Falls, for instance. When you're driving through it, the camera always follows you from behind and remains at a constant orientation relative to you, which can make you forget that this stage has all these crazy anti-grav sections. But if you just take a second to look at the actual stage, you'll see that half of the time you're clinging to and mostly driving up and down the walls. Not to mention, Mario Kart 8 looks far superior to any of the previous titles. Really shows off the graphical capabilities of the Wii U, with detailed character models and animations, creative vehicles and accessories, and incredibly well detailed racetracks. Creative and varied racetracks have always been present in Mario Kart games, taking inspiration from the pre-existing Mario environments as well as the original tracks. Each game trying to one-up the previous installment with tracks tailored to the new features, an example being the verticality in Mario Kart 64. Thanks to this game being in 3D, it meant Nintendo could experiment more with having levels with different heights. Mario Kart 64 was probably the most popular and was, to a lot of people, introduction to the series, myself included. It has amazing tracks, all the iconic items, as well as the definitive battle mode. Moving forward, we were then given Mario Kart Double Dash. I'd consider this one the black sheep of the bunch. Not because it's bad by any means, but simply because it tried something so drastically different it stands out. In Double Dash, you select 2 racers instead of 1. As such, this leads to some interesting differences. One, being able to hold on to 2 items at any one time. I'm aware that in most Mario Kart games you can have 2 items. If you hold the item you already have behind you and pick up another item, but this only works with items such as shells and bananas. In Double Dash, however, each racer can carry 1 item at any time. The catch this time around though, is that you have to switch racers in order to use the item, as there are 2 positions on any given car, that of the driver and the passenger. The passenger sits at the back and is in charge of using items and also aids in drifting, whereas the driver is solely responsible for driving. Switching drivers doesn't affect your controls and is for the most part simply a graphical difference. Managing both your characters adds up a bit of complexity to the game. Whether this complexity is good or bad is up to you. I personally don't mind it all that much, but it does come off as being a bit unnecessary at times. Finally, in the main series, we have Mario Kart Wii, which changed things up by adding bikes to the fray as well as the option for motion controls. It even came packaged with a nifty steering wheel peripheral for your Wiimotes. Now, you're probably wondering why haven't I talked about the handheld Mario Kart games, but honestly, I really don't have much experience with them, and as such don't really know how they play, so I thought it best to just leave them be. But overall, I'd probably say that Mario Kart 8 is by far the smoothest of the games. The controls are fluent and work perfectly, and the game just feels well made, but personally, my favourite would probably be Mario Kart 64. Due to a combination of nostalgia and the game's amazing levels and playstyle, it just has an amazing atmosphere, and when you play it, especially with friends, it just feels right. Now then, moving on to community discussion. Last week's question was, what character would you love to see in Hyrule Warriors and why? The first comment comes from BlueJ1524. Love this video and the accent. Irish, right? I should clarify right now, I'm Scottish, not Irish. But thanks for saying you like the video. As for playable characters I'd like to see, my 2 big ones got included already, Sheik and Ganondorf. But if I had to pick, I'd say it's a tie between the King of Red Lions in his human form, Nabooru and Tetra. I'd love to see all the traditional, plus some bosses, mini-bosses from previous games like Onyx, Skull Kid, Dead Hand, Dark Nut, Twin Rova, Volvagia, Phantom Ganon, Dark Link and Vati. It may be a tall order for this game, but if there's a sequel I'd hope to get a choice between heroes and villains. The villains could go against the various armies of Hyrule, fighting Link and other playable characters as well as unique, unplayable Zora, Goron or Hylian officers. I think there's still a fair bit we don't know about the game, like characters like Girahim and Gandorf are playable, which says to me that the villains in the game are in fact playable. I certainly hope so anyway, and as for mini-bosses and such from the past games, I agree. It would be interesting to see reimaginings of the old bosses in fancy HD, and as a small side note, I really do hope to see Skull Kid and Hyrule Warriors in some shape or form. Next comment comes from Pars, and it's a mouthful, but I had to include it since he's a bro and is my only supporter on Patreon, and you know, that's cool. Well then, they've got a Zora, Goron, Sheikah and a Gerudo in, and I'd kinda like to see them manage to fit in more of the awesome races that the series gives us. A Deku character would be neat to fit in, even if it was just a copy-paste of Deku Link from Majora's Mask. An alternate Gerudo, a female one instead of Gandorf, maybe Nabooru or Tunrova. Ice and fire combinations are always awesome. Skull Kid could be decent, considering the variety of his moveset. His flute, puppets, even Majora's Mask. He also has his Twilight Princess costume, which would be cool, even if it gave everyone nightmares. Ruto already represents the Zoras who evolved into the Rito, but considering how great their redesigns have been with Impa and others, I definitely think they'd be able to somehow give the bird people a chance. Maybe with an adult version of Prince Komali or somehow fit Medley in. Those would be my choices to give more representation to the variety of races that the Zelda series hold. Playable villains and bosses are always fun though, so seeing more would be great. Demise from Skyward Sword. We already have a big muscled, fiery haired mullet guy, but Demise's design just appeals to me more. Varen from Oracle of Ages. Her various forms would be intriguing to see used in gameplay. Onyx too, using his ball and chain while also representing the variety of knight armoured enemies and characters we encounter in the games. While I've not got around to buying and playing it myself, Yuga from A Link Between Worlds could be neat, with his wall merging powers. Burn from Spirit Tracks, like Tylos said, would fit neatly due to being a fighter. Majora in its humanoid form, specifically Majora's Wrath, would also be absolutely bizarre to play as. And for two spooky reasons, someone like the Hero's Spirit or Death Sword from Twilight Princess, or even the Style Master from Skyward Sword. Who doesn't want to play as a badass undead skeletal sword master? Obviously some of those characters are more likely than others. I think Hyrule Warriors is possibly limiting itself due to the art style and maybe narrative, considering the roster so far has focused on Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword. Then again, they haven't revealed all yet, and could always stick to the characters from games not in that trio, or the various Toon Link games for fan service purposes, or maybe DLC. The roster so far is brilliant, and to sum up and give a definitive answer, I think out of all the characters listed, I'd really like to play as Skull Kid and Twinrova. I don't think there's much more which needs to be said really, other than I love you Pars, and yes, Skull Kid. Next we have Revan0890. I would like to see Nabooru, mostly because we just don't get to see enough of the Gerudo, and it would also be nice to see Majora's Mask characters, especially the Skull Kid, Majora and the 4 transformation masks. Majora's Mask was the second Legend of Zelda game I ever played, after Ocarina of Time, and I thought it was absolutely amazing to play as a kickboxing Zora with boomerang fins. The second boss, Goat, I think, is my all-time favourite Zelda boss. When you roll around after him as a Goron, it was like Mario Kart and The Legend of Zelda had a love child together. I think having some diversity amongst the genders in the Gerudo would be a great addition, since Gerudo are primarily female, and have shown to be lethal fighters. People complain that Hyrule Warriors has too many female characters in there, but I think it's a welcome change from the norm honestly, since Zelda has so many great strong female characters. I would also love to see the characters like Zora Link in there, but I'm not too hopeful on that one actually being included, but we can dream. And last but not least, it seems only fitting to put this one last since his name is The Final DX. I would love to see Aghanim or Error as a playable character. We haven't had any representation of characters from pre-Ocarina of Time games, and they would be perfect. Aghanim would probably play similar to Lana, conjuring up magic objects and traps, and use objects similar to the crystals in A Link to the Past. Error would use magic spells from Zelda 2, making an offensive barrier around him and even turn into a fairy. I just had to include this one, simply for the mentioning of Error from Zelda 2 The Adventure of Link, and it got me thinking. I so hope there's a character in Hyrule Warriors who simply says, I am Error. Is that a game error, or is it simply his name? I guess we'll never know. And that's it for this week's comments. Our question this time around is, what is your favourite Mario Kart track and why? This can be from any Mario Kart game you want. I hope to see some great passionate answers. Until next time, mortals.